"It may sound like an unusual question, Your Highness," said Shiva, "but may I ask what your age is?" Daksha looked in surprise at Kanakla. Then turning back towards Shiva with an awed smile, he said, "You are exceptionally intelligent, my lord. You have asked the most pertinent question first." Crinkling his face into a conspiratorial grin, Daksha continued, "Last month, I turned 184. Shiva was stunned. Daksha did not look a day older than 30. In fact, nobody in Meluha looked old, except for the Pandit that Shiva had met at the Brahma temple. So Nandi is more than 100 years old. "How can this be, Your Highness?" asked a flabbergasted Shiva. "What sorcery makes this possible?" "There is no sorcery at all, my lord," explained Daksha. "What makes this possible is the brilliance of our scientists who make a potion called the Somras, the drink of the gods. Taking the Somras at defined times not only postpones our death considerably, but it also allows us to live our entire lives as if we are in the prime of our youth, mentally and physically." "But what is the Somras? Where does it come from? Who invented it?" "So many questions, my lord," smiled Daksha, "but I will try my best to answer them one by one. The Somras was invented many thousands of years ago by one of the greatest Indian scientists that ever lived. His name was Lord Brahma. I think there's a temple dedicated to him that I visited on the way to Devagiri, at a place named Meru?" "Yes, my lord. That is where he is said to have lived and worked. Lord Brahma was a prolific inventor, but he never took any of the benefits of his inventions for himself. He was always interested in ensuring that his inventions were used for the good of mankind. He realized early on that a potion as powerful as the Somras could be misused by evil men. So he implemented an elaborate system of controls on its use." "What kind of controls?" "He did not give the Somras freely to everyone," continued Daksh. "After conducting a rigorous countrywide survey, he chose a select group of adolescent boys of impeccable character, one from each of the 7 regions of ancient India. He chose young boys so that they would live with him at his Gurukul and he could mold their character into selfless helpers of society. The Somras medicine was administered only on these boys. Since these boys were practically given an additional life due to the Somras, they came to be known as the Dvija, or twice-born. With the strength of the Somras, the training of Lord Brahma, and the numerous other inventions that they collectively produced, this group became more powerful than anyone in history. They honed their minds to achieve almost superhuman intelligence. The ancient Indian title for men of knowledge was Rishi. Since Lord Brahma's chosen men were 7 in number, they came to be known as a Saptarishi. And these Saptarishis used their skills for the good of society? Yes, my lord. Lord Brahma instituted strict rules of conduct for the Saptarishis. They were not allowed to rule or to practice any trade, essentially anything that would have caused them personal gain. They had to use their skills to do the task of priests, teachers, doctors, amongst other intellectual professions, where they could use their powers to help society. They were not allowed to charge anything for their services and had to live on alms and donations from others. Tough service rules, joked Shiva, with a slight wink at Parvateshwar. Parvateshwar did not respond, but Daksha, Kanakla and Nandi guffawed loudly. Shiva took a quick look at the prahar lamp by the window. It was almost the 3rd prahar, the time that Sati would probably come out to dance. But they followed their code of conduct strictly, my lord, continued Daksha. Over time, as their responsibilities grew, the Saptarishis selected many more people to join their tribe. Their followers swore by the same code that the Saptarishis lived by and were also administered the Somras. They devoted their lives to the pursuit of knowledge and for the well-being of society, without asking for any material gain in return. It is for this reason that society accorded these people almost devotional respect. Over the ages, the Saptarishis and their followers came to be known as the tribe of Brahma, or simply the Brahmins. But as it usually happens with all good systems over long periods of time, some people stopped following the Brahmin code, right? Absolutely, my lord, answered Daksha, shaking his head at the all-too-familiar human frailty. As many millennia went by, some of the Brahmins forgot the strict code that Lord Brahma had enforced and the Saptarishis propagated. They started misusing the awesome powers that the Somras gave them for their own personal gains. Some Brahmins started using their influence over a large number of people to conquer kingdoms and start ruling. Some Brahmins misused other inventions of the Saptarishis and Lord Brahma to accumulate fabulous wealth for themselves. And some of the Brahmins, interjected Kanakla with a particular sense of horror, even rebelled against the Saptarishi Uttradhikaris. Saptarishi Uttradhikaris? Inquired Shiva. They were the successors to the Saptarishis, my lord, clarified Kanakla. When any of the Saptarishi knew that he was coming to the end of his mortal life, he would appoint a man from his Gurukul as his successor. This successor was treated for all practical purposes like the Saptarishi himself. So rebelling against the Saptarishi Uttradhikaris was like rebelling against the Saptarishi themselves. Yes, my lord, answered Kanakla. And the most worrying part of this corruption was that it was being led by the higher chosen tribe Brahmins like the eagles, peacocks and the swans. In fact, due to their higher status, these chosen tribes were actually not even allowed to work under the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, lest they get enticed by the lure of the material world. Yet, they succumbed to the temptations of evil before anyone else. And chosen tribes like yours, the pigeons, remained loyal to the old code despite working for the Kshatriyas? Asked Shiva. Yes, my lord, replied Kanakla, her chest puffed up with pride.